You are in a crowded room. Everyone around you seems fine, relaxed, moving through the evening without much effort, but something in you is running at full volume. The noise feels louder than it should. Someone across the room said something slightly off, and you are still processing it 20 minutes later. A song came on and you felt it somewhere in your chest before you could even name why. And at some point in your life, someone looked at you and said, "You are too sensitive." Maybe you believed them. Maybe you spent years trying to feel less, to care less, move through the world a little more like everyone else seemed to. But here is what psychology has quietly known for decades. You were never too sensitive. Your brain was just built to process the world at a depth that most people never reach. And once you understand exactly what is happening inside that brain, you will never see your sensitivity as a flaw again. In the 1990s, psychologist Elaine Aron identified something that researchers had been circling around for years without naming clearly. She called it sensory processing sensitivity. And what she found was this. Approximately 15 to 20% of the human population has a nervous system that is fundamentally calibrated differently from the rest. Not broken, not disordered, just set to a different level of depth. These people, now studied across decades of peer-reviewed research, do not simply feel more. Their brains actually process more. Every piece of incoming information, emotional, sensory, social, gets run through more cognitive layers, cross-referenced against more internal data, considered from more angles before the brain moves on. One researcher described the experience this way. It is like feeling and experiencing everything in high definition while everyone else is watching in standard. And the extraordinary part, this trait has been found in over 100 other species, birds, fish, primates. In every population studied, a consistent minority processes the environment at this deeper level. These are the ones who notice the threat before it arrives, who pick up on subtle shifts in social dynamics before anyone else does, who sense what is underneath the surface while others are still reading the surface. This trait did not survive this long by accident. It survived because it works. But understanding why it exists does not always make it easier to live with. And that is the part most people never talk about honestly. Here is what deep processing actually feels like from the inside. You walk into a room and you pick up the emotional temperature before anyone has said a word. The slight tension between two people. The forced smile on someone's face. The thing that was not said, but is hanging in the air anyway. You register all of it simultaneously, and your brain begins working through it before your conscious mind has even caught up. In a world that moves quickly and rewards people who move quickly with it, this can feel like a disadvantage. Everyone else has already moved on to the next thing, and you are still fully inside the last one. This conversation ends and other people forget it within the hour, but you replay it. Not because you are anxious exactly, but because your brain is still doing what it always does, processing completely, looking for what was underneath, trying to understand the full dimension of what just happened. Psychologists at UC Berkeley studying this trait found something that reframed the experience for many people. What looks like overthinking from the outside is not anxiety driving the repetition. It is depth driving it. The brain is not stuck. It is thorough. And then there is the emotional side. Because feeling everything deeply is not just about thought, it is about the body. Research using brain imaging on highly sensitive people found something striking. When exposed to emotional stimuli, a stranger's expression of pain, a piece of music, even a photograph, the brain regions associated with empathy and awareness activated significantly more strongly than in less sensitive individuals. The insula, the cingulate cortex, the regions responsible for connecting what you observe with what you feel. In plain terms, when a highly sensitive person watches someone else suffer, their brain does not just register the information. It participates in the experience. This is why a sad movie hits differently for some people, why a piece of music can feel almost unbearable in its beauty, why someone else's bad day becomes something you carry in your body for hours afterward, even if you never said a word about it. It is not weakness. It is a nervous system that does not maintain distance from experience, that moves toward depth as its default setting. And now for the part that I think matters most. If you are someone who feels everything deeply, and especially if you were told growing up that this was a problem, something specific likely happened to your relationship with your own emotions. When a child is consistently told their emotional responses are too much, they do not learn to feel less. They learn to distrust what they feel. Research shows that because the highly sensitive person's baseline emotional response is already stronger, suppressing it requires constant effort. And over time, that produces something painful. Not numbness, but a deep exhaustion from spending years managing the gap between what you actually feel and what you are allowed to show. The cruelest part is this. The people told most often to stop being so sensitive are precisely the ones who cannot, because sensitivity was never a choice. Telling them to feel less is like telling someone to stop being left-handed. The instruction does not change the wiring. It just adds shame to it. If this kind of psychology resonates with you, the kind that actually explains who you are instead of asking you to be someone else, consider subscribing. There is more coming that I think you will want to see. It takes 2 seconds. Here is what most people never realize about people who feel everything deeply. They are not just more affected by the negative. They are more affected by everything. The same nervous system that makes a harsh word sting for days also makes a beautiful sunset stop them completely. Makes a piece of music feel like it was written for the exact moment they are living in. Makes a genuine conversation feel more nourishing than anything else that happened that week. The dial is not turned up only on pain. It is turned up on all of it. This is why so many of the world's most compelling artists, writers, musicians, and caregivers are highly sensitive people. Not despite their sensitivity. Because of it. Their work carries emotional weight because they felt the weight first. They could not have produced it any other way. But there is one honest thing worth saying about living with this trait. Processing more requires recovering more. This is not weakness, it is biology. Where someone else unwinds from a long social evening within an hour, a highly sensitive person may need an entire day of quiet before they feel like themselves again. The world was largely built for a different nervous system. Loud offices, back-to-back obligations, no real space for recovery. That friction is not a personal failure. It is a design mismatch. And for many people, that reframe alone changes everything. Here is what I want to leave you with. If you have spent your life feeling like the volume is turned up higher for you than it seems to be for everyone else, you were right. It is. But not because something went wrong. That depth makes certain things harder. Environments that others move through easily can feel genuinely overwhelming. Emotions that others release quickly can stay in your body for days. But that same depth is the reason you notice what other people miss. Form connections other people cannot access. Feel joy and beauty at an intensity most people only get close to occasionally. You were never too sensitive for this world. The world was just not always built with your kind of depth in mind. And maybe the question worth asking is not how to feel less, but what your life could look like if you finally stopped treating your sensitivity as the problem and started treating it as the point. If this video felt like something you needed to hear, leave it in the comments. I read every single one. And if you want more psychology that explains you instead of asking you to change, subscribing genuinely helps this channel keep going. See you in the next one.